And about 8 years ago, I started doing the grant work. I'm on the board.
Mm-hmm. We came and visited you guys. Oh my God, it's been like a year. It was like last August.
Time flies.
Yes, it
Mm.
does.
And I'm Jean Winall. I'm the coordinator of Groton Community Cupboard. I've been the coordinator for the last 2.5 years, I think. But I've been volunteering, I don't know, several years before that.
I'm Brenda Kronk. I'm at the Park Terrace Food Pantry. Been there 20 years. I started the year after they opened. And my sister and I are now kind of running it. Got lots of good volunteers, probably about 26, 27 volunteers that keep it going.
I'm Janet Maher. I am the coordinator and director for Newfield. In about 3 days, no, 3 or 4 days, it'll be 1 year doing that. I started uh, working with them in 2022, I think, and then Marge decided last summer that she needed to start taking some steps back. They played a long game. They snuck it in on me. And for the past year, I've pretty much done it all. I've done the whole, um, you know, slowly moving into the ordering, into the volunteer stuff, the grant writing, the whole schmeal.
Right. So yeah, you're relatively new. Jean, did you take over from Jessamine?
Yes, I did.
Yep, so you've been there for a while. Yep.
Yeah.
This one's trying to come in too. Yeah, so I think I'm just curious because the first time I'm hosting this, like how you're all doing, what you're seeing, what you're thinking about, what you're maybe worried about. Big questions, it's a lot happening, especially in the past few months, in terms of the legislation that's being passed, how it's impacting budgets. So yeah, anybody want to kick us off?
Do you know the impact? I heard that the big beautiful budget did pass. Do we know
Mhm.
the impact to the food bank for that?
So I don't think we're going to see a lot of direct impacts from that legislation. What we're really worried about is the changes to SNAP. So in New York State, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to happen everywhere right away is they have expanded what I call work reporting requirements. It's work requirements. SNAP already does have a lot of work requirements, but they have increased the pool of who needs to report that they're working. So they've changed a bunch of stuff. They've added veterans to this list of people who have to work to get SNAP. They added they increased the age for parents if you have a 7-year-old to a 14-year-old. There's a bunch of changes actually. I have in a slide. I could put it in our chat too. So essentially, a lot more people right away are subject to report that they're working at least 20 hours a week or they can't get SNAP. We don't know how many people in New York that is, but that's a huge barrier because they definitely have to like log into a computer and upload pay stubs and prove that they're either working or volunteering 20 hours a week. And if they don't do that, they're kicked off the program. The other piece is it makes the states pay more right away for admin fees. So right now, states pay 50-50 between the federal government to administer SNAP. And that's going to change. So states have to pay 75% and the federal government pays 25%. So if any of you work with like our NOEPs who do SNAP outreach, New York State is expected to pay more to keep them going. The other thing that is ending right away is SNAP Ed. So cooperative extension and JSY that we have is done at the end of September. So the JSY program, which has been around for 30 years, is done. Anybody who's ever had a JSY nutrition educator come out and do demos. Our plan is to keep our 2 staff through the end of the year at least, but we are losing that money October 1 that we got from the state that paid for our nutrition educators. What's really devastating is cooperative extension. They have several, each county has at least 1 nutrition educator and they're all losing their jobs September 30th. I'm not sure if any of you had JSY or any SNAP Ed come to your agencies. Yeah. So that's, how many people are going to lose their jobs. The long-term really big changes to SNAP is this cost sharing to actually pay for SNAP. And it's very wonky and it's based on what state you're in. But in New York, they're saying by 2029, we have to start paying more administrative fees to have, or to actually pay for the program. So we do have, this 4 years. So like, what does that look like? But ultimately what we think is going to happen is less people are going to be eligible for SNAP, less people are going to enroll in SNAP, less people are going to get SNAP. And where do they go when SNAP is hit? They're going to come see you all, and they're going to come see us through our programs. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Again, like our biggest budget impact is the loss of the JSY money, the contract that we got through New York State. And then we don't know how this is going to trickle through New York State with HIPNAP, Nourish New York, and our state level programs. We did have an assemblywoman in the building yesterday, Donna Lopardo, who represents Binghamton. And she was pretty much saying, the state's going to prioritize basic needs, and conversations and food is a really basic need. So she's going to fight to keep, HIPNAP and Nourish. But I don't know if we will see the legislative money that we've gotten in the past few years. So it's a lot of bummer news. I kind of was optimistic for a moment that it wouldn't actually pass because, it passed right before the 4th of July. It passed on a squeaker. I think a lot of people don't understand, not even talk about Medicaid. It also does an immense amount of changes to Medicaid along with work reporting requirements. And they're estimating 10 million people are going to lose their health insurance, within 5 years. So optimistically, I'm hoping that there's a huge blowback. People are going home on recess right now and hearing from their constituents, but I think a lot of people don't even know what's going to happen. And people who are going to be directly impacted one day are going to go open up their mailbox or try to access a program and it's not there anymore, or they're kicked off it. And yeah, anytime there's those kind of changes, people turn to emergency food, and they've also cut back on programs through TFAP at the same time. So I feel like I was just talking to our chief operating officer. It's like we're kind of standing on the beach watching this big tsunami, and we know it's coming. We don't know how big it's going to be, and we don't know when it's going to hit us. So we're just trying to prepare. And yeah, and I want to hear from you all what you're thinking too. And as we're working on our budget for next year, we've been thinking a lot about supporting agencies. How are we helping with funding? How are we helping with volunteer recruitment? How are we helping with succession planning? So that was a lot of information. So I'll stop talking. If you have any questions or anything to respond to, or just want to share anything that you're seeing, love to hear from you all.
Probably one of our biggest concerns, believe it or not, beyond funding, is the succession planning for our volunteers, because we're an aging group. I'm one of the young ones. We have several of our folks are 80 and 90s year old, and they're starting to not come in as often because they're having health issues. And that's probably one of our biggest concerns facing us right now.
How are other folks feeling, or what are you seeing or hearing from your clients or your volunteers?
Well, we're just seeing more and more of a need. I mean, we have new clients and every week, and clients that we haven't seen for a while coming back. So yeah, and less and less food available at a reasonable cost,
Yeah, it's like this perfect storm. More people, less resources. Yeah, and we're anticipating getting the more HIPNAP, the LIF money, which I think is how it's worded in Primarius, that extra money we've gotten the last 2-3 years. Last year we didn't find out until October, but then we got a big chunk from the state that went all into your account. So that has been helpful, but the timing's always been tricky of like, we don't know how much we're getting. Sometimes there's drama on the state level and how these contracts are split up between food banks too. But we've been kind of lucky the past years because we've gotten a big chunk of that LAF money, and pretty much half that money we've just passed on to you all for food purchasing. But That's not a
Right.
guarantee either. It's not part of the whole contract.
Well, and it's hard to know how much to order. Our numbers can vary 20 to 40 people in a week.
Mhm.
And, you order enough for the higher number, and then that particular week is a lower number per count. And getting your produce to carry out for that, that time frame that you've ordered
Yep.
from.
Yep. Is anyone else kind of seeing kind of flux in clients that's impacting your ordering?
We're kind of reactive. We wait until the cupboards start getting low or it's
Mm.
mainly the freezer food, the meats and stuff get low and we place the order. And we average 1 to 2 orders a month, but it's been about one order a month, so that's something we can plan on and what's been happening in our pantry. Huge
Mhm.
families though. We had a family of
Mhm.
11 and a
Mhm.
family of 8
Oh.
and the big families make the shelves go empty quicker.
Mhm.
We are seeing the bigger families come in.
How about anything out in Newfield or Painted Post for you?
Newfield's always kind of weird, in so many ways. We yo-yo up and down, and we're a twice a month agency, and sometimes it seems to vary. We, as the board, have noticed that, like, depending on what our special offerings are, in a given cycle, like we alternate between like a personal care and a household cleaning kind of thing. Um, it, we recently started talking about the fact that we get more people that show up during the household cleaning products week. Um, you
Mm.
know, that was kind of interesting. But then our summers are always very unpredictable. It's like our numbers in July were nowhere near where I thought they would be, and but I think a lot of that is school's out, and we're a fairly child intensive area, so I think there's a lot of people doing vacations, getaways, whatnot. So it's but like Brenda said, it's just really hard to predict right now, anyway.
Mm.
I'm not involved in the ordering, so I don't really know that much about it, but I just know that our numbers are up. The shelves are constantly being emptied, but we're lucky in the fact that we have food recovery from Wegmans. So most of our
Mhm.
produce and salad packages and a lot of dairy and stuff comes from there. So we don't have to worry about that in the ordering process.
I will add that we in Newfield, we do love when the milk, like the half gallons, are available through the food bank. Doesn't happen all
Mhm.
the time, but when they do, we jump on that like big time. Because our volunteer shoppers, again, Brenda had said they're an aging crowd. Our ladies are too. When I joined the board, I brought the average age down by 5 years.
Mm.
So and shopping is one of the few aspects that I'm not directly involved with. But I know our ladies, just adore schlepping, 30, 40 half gallons of milk into the building, well, out of
Mm.
the store into the building. All that.
Mhm.
That's a really, really valuable resource to us. Not to mention it saves us a lot of money.
We've also recently heard about a new resource. We're just starting to look into it called Good Neighbor. They're not related to
Mhm.
the food bank, but they seem to be have a lot of connections
Yep.
with restaurants and stores and things. And it seems to be that it's pretty open to pantries or individuals. Again, we're just starting to look into it, but I don't know if anybody else has Good Neighbor facilities in their area, it seems like it's gonna be a good resource, another resource for getting donations.
Yeah, I think they're Broome based, but going into Tioga a bit. But I guess they're kind of like a food recovery, similar to Friendship Donations, I would say, up in Tompkins area. Yeah, and we're trying to figure out a more formal way to partner with them because they are an awesome resource.
It sounds like they've made a lot of connections,
Yeah.
for food recovery.
Hmm.
So they seem like a good resource. Again, we're just starting to hear about it. I haven't been there. I just heard about it Saturday from one of our workers or volunteers, so we got to check it out.
Nice. On the succession planning and volunteer fronts, what do you all think would be the most effective way we as the food bank could support individual agencies? Is it working with you on a succession plan and like actually recruiting volunteers for you? Because this is something I've been thinking about for a long time, and we just need to kind of roll it out. And I think as if the situation does get tighter and worse, we're going to need to firm up the emergency food network as best as we can. I also kind of, I hear and feel that people aren't as retiring as early, or people are working longer. But yeah, just kind of curious from you all what way we could support you, or what you're how you're navigating volunteers and succession planning.
Yeah, we pull from, somebody knows somebody, and whether it's from a
Mhm.
school or an organization. One of the things that perhaps the food bank could do at your level is when you do advertising, for donations and things,
Mhm.
just also mention that volunteer are always being sought after,
Mhm.
and maybe make that, volunteer your time a tab they could access in the website.
Mhm.
And then, depending on their location, direct them to the right pantry or whatever. We have a number of people that have all good intentions and call and say they're gonna come, and then they never show. Or
Mm.
they come one time and they say they'll be back and they don't come back.
Mm.
So our record with volunteers are usually the word of mouth helpers from somebody knows somebody
Mhm.
that already volunteers there work out the best. But that's one way I think the food bank could perhaps help, is just by advertising volunteers are needed at all these locations as well.
Yeah, like right now on our website, if you go to volunteer, it's just about coming in and volunteering in the production room. And that's something I've been thinking about. And I know we've been asking in the survey that you're all filling out, specifically like which sites do need volunteers. And then I've been thinking about how do we work better with, the United Ways, the other organizations that source volunteers more locally, because it's kind of tricky right now if someone's in Binghamton and they call and they're like, we want to volunteer in Binghamton. We kind of send them to Devon because we're like, Devon, who needs help in your area? But I think we can have a clearer process, because some sites are like, we're good, we don't need anybody. But I think we need to promote the sites that do need it.
We're doing pretty well with volunteers right now. We're not in need of volunteers to work the pantry. We more need board members, and it's hard to
Mhm.
find people who are interested in committing to the board. But
Yeah.
I think we've gotten a lot of volunteers in recent times. That quarterly incentive report that we were doing, where the food
Mhm.
bank was giving us money for things that we were doing, reaching out to the community, I think that
Mhm.
really promoted awareness in the community. I think as a result, we've gotten a lot more donations and volunteers as well through that. So
Oh, that's great.
that was a good thing.
Yeah, and that was like, I think, kind of a short-term initiative around the incentives. It's something I'd
Mhm.
like to keep, but when we're going through the budget, people are like, what? But yeah, that's awesome to hear that it worked for you. Do you find, Phyllis, do you have a lot of like Corning folks on your board?
Corning Incorporated now,
Yeah. I
and
feel like that's an untapped place.
we've reached out to them several times. I went to
Hmm.
their person who was in charge of volunteers, and we just don't get a commitment from them for some reason. Well, I think it's hard too, because we need to have people. We're open daily, so we need to have people that will commit as a regular basis.
Mhm.
one day every 4 weeks, and they're more walk in and do a few hours and not be on a set schedule, I think is the problem there.
Yeah.
As for large corporations, I think a lot of times it's not well advertised within also to the employee level, that you can have one day a year where you can do community service kind of things. Like where I used to work, that was like a stealth policy that they had in place for years, and they never ever ever told anybody about it. And so like if in a volunteer kind of thing, if they could get together a team of, however many people, 5, 10 people or whatever, once a month, or however many volunteers you needed, that would be a good opportunity for people to use that. And it's kind of like their one-time commitment over the course of the year.
Hmm.
But that's more of the problem. We need somebody on a regular basis, not just once in a while here and there. We get a lot of people who say, what can I do? And there isn't anything that they can do on a one visit basis for them.
Just because of like training kind of
Yeah.
things. I think your site operates very differently than us. We're not
Yeah.
a 5 day a week kind of
We-
thing by any stretch.
We can use them. I get people for the food drives, the Boy Scout food drive twice a year and the Postal Service food drive. So I do haul in people there, but then it's only half a dozen people at a time that I need. So
It's probably a similar situation with like schools and colleges. Like they kind of want those quick, easy opportunities to pop
exactly. Yeah.
in, and
One
that's
and
the
done.
yeah, that's the benefit of our model in the production is you can just show up, you pack food for 2 hours, you're out of here,
Yeah.
But you're essentially the unpaid workers, like you have
Exactly.
jobs, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
skill set and the training.
I have them come in for one of the scheduled days of operation, and it's a full 3 hours to teach them everything they have to learn on the operation.
Mhm. Like we lost Brenda. Maybe she'll come back. Any other thoughts about volunteers? Do you all have succession plans for you, or if you're going to move to Florida next year, who would take over?
I've been threatened 2 or 3 years that I'm leaving my position. I haven't had any takers to replace
Yeah.
me. Yes,
I
that is
keep
a problem.
dropping hints, but yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
become-
all of us deal with the same thing. Our volunteers are, 70, 80 years old and nobody wants to take on the job.
Mhm.
I'm getting to the point where I would want to retire from my retirement job.
Mhm.
Well, when
And I'm
Stefan
one of the youngest people on the staff too.
Mhm. Mhm.
when Stefan stopped out and did our site visit a couple of months ago, he was asking about that. I'm like, you're looking at her,
Mhm.
just having been in it for a year. But I do know like a number of people who are interested and involved kind of at the periphery, but I keep finding ways to try to suck them in more towards the core functions. And like I know that like we have a couple of teachers who are nearing retirement, and we have a police officer who's got like another 5 years or something. And
Mhm.
there are people who have good connections in the community and whatnot. So that's kind of where I'm casting my eye for pulling people in right now.
Do you have like everything that you do? Is it all documented? Do you have SOPs, or is that something that if let's just say you didn't have anything, I'm just making this up. Say in Newfield, you didn't have anything written down and you're like, I'm out of here next week. Is that something like if Stefan came out, and could we maybe try to document how you operate? Could we create, you know, a binder that somebody could kind of like training materials, or do you already have all that stuff created?
Well, ironically, we do have a binder, which somebody gave to me about 3 weeks ago. Like,
Ah,
where was this last year? And
uh-huh.
it was something they pulled together during the pandemic. I think you guys did a big push about documentation during like early stages of the
Mhm.
pandemic. So it's good 5 years out of date at this point. But when she handed me the thing and I went through it, I'm like, there were still 3 or 4 things in there that I had little eureka moments. I'm like, oh, so that's how this was, or how we
Mhm.
handle, just a couple of, esoteric little things. Um, and from I was talking to the lady that gave me the binder the other day, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we've shared this, I think, with Spencer and a couple of other pantries in the past." So, and I had told actually Amanda after I wasn't able to attend her last office hours, but I had seen I did watch the video, and
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, we do have something. It's actually." Fairly reasonable. And I think we have most of the files electronically from what I was told. So I told her if people were interested, I mean, obviously it's not a Bible and it certainly doesn't apply to every single agency, but it it seems to be a fairly reasonable starting point for a lot of that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think because whatever we can borrow and steal from each other. We're
Mm-hmm.
also trying to revamp our own orientation for new sites, for new site coordinators, because it's like, you know, this 2 hour session, it's a brain dump, but we're trying to make shorter videos, little like one pagers on like how to order, how to submit stats, you know, real basic stuff. What is TFAP? Because we used to have an actual pantry manual like in 2005. It was like a big giant thing, but we haven't updated it since then. So I think whatever food bank resources we can have around the ordering and that piece, and then your own site specific, maybe we could borrow the Newfield binder and try to get each site to have something like that's unique to your own program. Do you have anything similar in Painted Poster and Groton?
No, I was, yeah, handed everything. I was given nothing and I've been flying by the seat of my pants for the past
Mm.
3 years. So anything you have in Newfield, that would be great. Electronically would be great.
Yeah, like I said, we definitely need to do some serious updating on it, but we'd be happy to share with whoever.
It's just a matter of having time,
Exactly.
you know.
Mhm.
We're all doing this as our own jobs and,
Mhm.
retirement, but having enough time, hours in the day to, yeah, to put something together.
Yeah, well, um having assumed this role like a year ago without being handed the whole documentation, it, for all intents and purposes, has been close to a full-time job. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
for a 2 times a month
Mm-hmm.
agency.
Mhm.
Um, but I, I'm at the point where, moving forward, it's going to be a lot more smooth sailing with it. But it, like you said, I hate reinventing the wheel. I reinvented the wheel. It felt like every single time I had a new boss when I was working, and it's just a deep-seated hatred of mine to have to keep doing that. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, anything we can do if you want, sit down, talk about it. Happy to do so and share.
That's great. Because I think as much documentation and processes you have written down, so when you're recruiting volunteers to say like, you know, what are the expectations? And
Hmm.
maybe the other thing we could help think about is even like a volunteer position description, because maybe you have different volunteers who do different roles. So like if you're the
Right.
ordering
And
person or you're this person, like what is it? How many hours a week? What's expected of you?
right.
You know,
And
just like a regular job. Mhm.
right, we actually had something very similar to that.
Yeah, if you want to send that our way, and if it's not up to date, we could take a look and maybe make some sort of template that we could share out. A couple of years ago, we were trying to build up like a peer resource library of all the tools that you all have, just for people to come in, and we've kind of fallen away from that. But I think it's smart. Yeah, no reinventing of the wheel.
I apologize. I have to hop off. I do have a hard stop today.
Okay.
But,
Well, as I said, I think it's the
yeah.
first time I met you. Yeah, we'll be in touch. Oh, Brenda's coming
Yeah, it
back
was-
in.
okay, it was good to meet you.
Yeah,
Have a
take
good day.
care.
Try not to melt.
Yeah.
Randy, somebody from the food bank stopped by or rode with our driver last Monday, and I wasn't there. I was at a funeral, and they didn't know who it was. They said they were going to contact me later on and try to set up some time that they could come and just observe. Do you know who that was? Or
Oh, that was probably Kathy Rasmussen. So she's the chair of our board of directors. And as you're
okay,
saying that, I was like, oh, we probably should have given Sites the heads up that she'd be on the truck that day.
yeah, it was Monday. So
Randy,
Yeah,
wasn't
that
it
was her.
also, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. This is Lindsay from the food bank. Wasn't it also that Sam was with her too? I'm wondering if Sam wanted to come out and get a
Oh,
story.
oh, yeah. There were two ride-alongs last week. We'll figure it out. It was either our board chair or our director of communications. It might have been actually, that's a good point, Lindsay.
okay. I'm
Um,
usually there, but for that hour I wasn't, and yeah, my volunteers didn't know who it was, and so
do you guys so we do ride-alongs like for orientation. Do you like to get a heads up if there's like a stranger coming on the truck? That's something I never actually thought about.
yeah. It would be nice, but it really, if I was there, it wouldn't have made a difference, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I think especially I think for our staff it's a bit more standard, but like the board chair, yeah, I honestly didn't think about that, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could figure out who that was. I think it might have been Sam. I think you're right, Lindsay.
Yeah, because I had only seen the post about Kathy being out, and then I think when I was meeting with Sam, I think she mentioned being out that way. So
So do they actually ride in the truck with the driver, or do they come? Okay.
yeah,
Kathy met
super
them
common.
in town. Yeah, Kathy met them in town and
Okay.
got on the truck. But even for me, because like I was saying, I've been a bit of an inside cat. I've been telling myself, like, I need to get on the truck at least each quarter just to get out, get away from my desk, meet new people. Because then I always get new ideas and what we should be doing
Yeah.
differently. And yeah, I think, well, Lindsay, do you want to talk at all about story collection while you're here? We could maybe shift gears, unless there's anything else about volunteer recruitment and SOPs and stuff. Brenda, we were just saying, Newfield has a really nice binder for a new site coordinator that's just trying to capture all SOPs and things like that. So we're talking about maybe making a template so each site has a binder if a new site coordinator came in, or just like laying out how you run your own agency. I don't know if you had anything to add on that, or if we want to shift gears on topics.
Yeah, sorry I cut out. My internet stopped and just got it
That's all right.
restarted.
That happens. Yeah. Lindsay, do you want to talk about what you've been up to at all? And what we're trying to do with story collection?
Sure. I jumped on today. I'm trying to keep tabs a little better on what's happening with the network because I'm in a role. Some of it for me from my agency services days. But I've been in advocacy and education for a while now and doing client engagement and leading workshops and things for the food bank. And now I'm adding on this piece that we're talking about as narrative change. And basically, I'm going to be supporting the communications team in a few different ways and really trying to boost the stories that we have and find and boost the stories that we have from our partners and program sites about the good work that you all are doing and make sure that the donors and the community are understanding what's happening with our programs and partner sites and understand the impact that you're having, and then ensure that the client voice is included, things like that. So I just started, this month was my first month contributing to the partner newsletter, which Randy's been herding the cats on for some time now. And I I'm jumping in on things like that and trying to bring stories, excuse me, to the communications team. So we're going to be working on a few things that will hopefully make this a little bit easier. One being we've done kind of different versions of this in the past, but basically like a story lead toolkit, or just a story toolkit where you can send a story our way, be it about your your agency, or about a client that you think has a compelling story. And I think especially with the changes we're going to see coming to SNAP, that's going to be important to capture those stories and have people in the public better understand what's happening there over the coming months. And then the impact that we're seeing in the network based on that, as Randy was talking about at the beginning. So anyways, I am always looking for stories and kind of twofold. One, to help people better understand food insecurity and our network's work to address it, and then also to really just encourage donors to keep supporting us, especially in these times where we know that's going to be increasingly important with potential changes with government funding for our work. So and the increased need we expect to see with the cuts to SNAP. So that's kind of my spiel, but I'm available for questions, and then you can always, probably the easiest way to get in touch is just advocacy@foodbankst.org. You can certainly email my personal, lindsay.lyman@foodbankst.org, but that's a little trickier on the spelling and such. Advocacy is easy to remember. So I am here. And hopefully getting out some materials that will make it easy for y'all to send in stories when you do have them soon. Working on that with the comms team now.
Any thoughts on stories? Or I mean, sure, you all have a lot of stories, and I think what we're trying to get better at is like when we see a story, how do we get it? How do we communicate it? Because sometimes we just need like a quote to give to a donor. Sometimes we need stuff in our newsletter. We really want to do more on social about our agencies and our network, because we're pretty good at talking about our own programs, but I think we can do a lot better of talking about the work that you all do.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of you have a story from even the last month or two that's kind of sticking out in your brain? Or any stories from any time that you've been at your agency?
Another way to think about it is like what clients have stuck with you. If you're thinking about folks when you're just going about your day, like who is it that sticks with you, or that maybe you not necessarily keeps you up at night. Hopefully you're getting good sleep, but that you worry about, or that you think about, or a potential, or a particularly hopeful or encouraging story. Sometimes people find a food pantry for the first time, and it can set a lot of changes in motion for them, positively for them and their families, so those kinds of things. We're not just trying to only share the dire need and talk about like the hard side of things, but also share how impactful the agencies are for folks in their lives, and the kinds of positive impacts that y'all bring to them.
The stories are very moving and certainly very powerful, but they're also very private. And I
Mm.
always admired the people that came forth and shared their stories, but it's not for everybody. A lot of people don't want to talk about their situations. So
Mhm.
I think that's a unique thing when you find somebody that does want to share. And it helps us all to understand better, but it's a
Mhm.
hard thing to ask of people, or you
Mhm.
almost feel like you're prying sometimes.
Yeah.
Ask too many questions.
Yeah, I really get that. And I'm always, you know, when I'm trying to get stories or from talking with CAP members and recording their story, like always starting off with people conversationally, and then um very early on saying, we are always looking for stories if you're willing to share. Here's why that would be helpful for us. We also always have the opportunity, if need be, or if folks want to only do a first name or to change the name, and just give like a county of residence instead of a town. So there are ways to kind of work around that if folks are interested but a little hesitant. We can offer that, and they can choose where it goes as well, is another thing I think people maybe aren't as fully aware of. So we have a release form where they can pick and choose. I'm okay with this going in print, but a lot of people might not want their story on social media, for instance,
Mhm.
right? So um, because that can just be a lot more
Mhm.
dog eat dog kind of world. So they can pick and choose where they'd be comfortable with it. Um, is another thing. So yeah, and never like, I'm not saying at this moment like um tell me all the stories and give me all their contact info, but um if you have at any time, if you have any leads of this is really interesting, and you could even kind of put it on us and say, hey, the food bank's been asking us for stories, would you be willing to just talk with somebody and see, and at any point in the process they can be like, you know what, I'm not comfortable, I'm not gonna share it. We have like a whole process that allows for that, and it includes that. We're trying to be really respectful. And there also is compensation for those that do share their story, and especially if they get their picture taken, there's like additional for that and stuff. So um um that's part of us trying to honor their sharing as well. So yeah, I totally understand though that you may have stories that come to mind, but you haven't gotten permission to share, and definitely respect that. But if you do end up talking to clients and say, hey, would you be willing for me to put you in touch with the food bank? They're trying to, you can explain it as like, the food bank is trying to um, help people understand um, food programs better, and who's utilizing them and why. And then also they're trying to help keep up donations. We're trying to help um, folks continue to support our work. And when they hear how impactful, the pantry is, that makes people want to support us and keep donating. So it's just to help them understand the critical nature of your work, really. So anywho, you can pass us leads if folks are interested in sharing at any point.
Mm. This really has been brought to light this summer with kind of stories of my volunteers with the heat. And I'm sure this applies to other pantries as well. But I can't tell you the number of people that have come in this summer with heat exhaustion, maybe they've waited in line or whatever. And my volunteers have reached out. I have bottled water available for my volunteers, and the volunteers that have come forward and offered a chair for an individual to sit in for a period of time, or a bottle of water, to just take a break before they get their food. This summer we had an individual that lives by themselves, came in, he walked probably a block and a half from the pantry to get his food and wasn't able to walk back. And so one of my volunteers took our van and gave this individual a ride home. And after she left the individual, she still felt uncomfortable with how the individual was doing. And so we got the police involved to do a welfare check later on. The police weren't able to do it. We called the local fire department. They were able to send over an EMT who was on call at the fire station just to check on this individual. We've had a second individual come in just recently. And again, lived probably a block and a half from the pantry, come in with heat exhaustion. We ended up taking him home. He broke down, is really needs some social services, needs some Meals on Wheels, and wasn't able to get Meals on Wheels to deliver him meals. So we have followed through with this individual and got him set up just last week with Meals on Wheels. And this is, we have several people that live by themselves that don't have any family connections. And the individual came in last Monday. We got him all set up, came in again on Thursday, had no clue that he had been there on Monday. He came back again yesterday and was still very disoriented, started arguing with me about that he had not been there last Monday, but had been on Thursday, and just the dementia and the deterioration of some of these people. And he's an individual that had moved from the city to Groton to be by his sister, and now his sister has totally disowned him. And so, we've gone to the extent of gotten a hold of the building manager and shared our concerns with her and gotten a hold of social services for somebody to check on this guy because he's all by himself. So, I thank my volunteers, and, I think a story alone about the volunteers that, help these people and go above and beyond.
Yeah, because you become like social workers, and you're not
You're-
social workers by training, I assume, and
Yes.
it's a very
You're their
complex
family.
situation.
You're their
and
family. Yep. I don't know how many people
Wow.
say, "Oh, I got to be there for pantry," because that's their social network once a week. It's like going to the grocery store or going to the bank for some of these older people. That's their social network. That's their opportunity to get out and, I have to laugh when people say, okay, we need to move the line along, but because they're talking and they're sharing their stories and sharing their medical concerns. And, but yeah, I have to remind people that this may be their only social network.
Yeah. I hear that a lot for sure.
There's a lot of isolation,
Yes.
and I get doom and gloom and worry it's only going to get worse with AI and tech, and like people just recede even more inside, and yeah.
I'm gonna go. Thank you, and I
Okay.
appreciate the summary on the impact for the new bill. That was.
Yeah, if we
Uh,
can, Brenda, we can send you, if you want a Feeding America, like an actual summary of the high level impacts, or we have something from New York State, we could send it to you directly. We could put it in our newsletter next month too.
Oh,
That would
I'm
be good.
thinking
yeah,
we'll
that would
stick
be
that in the
good.
newsletter, and we're also, Sarah DeFrank and I were just talking this morning about the need for sort of like a one-pager explanation, maybe even like a little infographic style. Not that we have numbers, but well, we have some numbers. We don't know exactly all the impacts yet, but we know a lot of the dollar amounts and things. So anywho, that will be circulated hopefully also in the next month or so. So be on the
That
lookout
would
for
be
that.
helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
I have to
Absolutely.
go
Thank you,
too,
Brenda.
so.
Okay.
Okay, we
Bye,
can probably
all.
wrap up. Yeah, take care, Brenda. Jean, thanks for sharing that. It was nice to meet you online. And Phyllis, I think I met you when I came to visit, but it was nice to see you.
I think so.
Thanks.
Well, I've seen you a number of different affairs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day and have some time for yourself this summer.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Take
All right,
care.
thanks.